So welcome to my webinar. Thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is why GCSE Revision Fails. I've badged it as biology, but you can apply these principles to any topic or any subject that you're doing and learning. So even when students work really hard, which more often than not they do, biology or GCSE revision, no matter what the topic, often doesn't translate into exam marks. This session today is going to explain why that happens. Not in terms of effort, but in terms of how memory, recall, and exam pressure actually works. So once you understand the psychology behind revision, it becomes much clearer why students can revise for hours and still underperform. The illusion of learning. One of the biggest problems in revision is something called the illusion of learning. This is when revision feels productive, but doesn't actually build exam-ready memory. Students often mistake familiarity for understanding, and that mistake is costly under exam conditions. So, recognition versus recall. Have you ever picked something up and read it or seen it and thought, yes, I understand that. I understand how that works. So, recognition and recall are not the same thing. Recognition is where something looks familiar, like reading a textbook and thinking, yes, I know that. Recall is being able to produce that information from memory without prompts. So GCSE exams test the recall, not the recognition. But most revision methods train recognition. Memory is context sensitive. Memory doesn't exist in isolation. What we remember depends heavily on the context with which the information was learned. So if revision always happens in calm, low pressure settings, memory becomes dependent on those conditions, which are very different from an exam hall. Working memory limits. Another issue is working memory. Working memory has a very limited capacity, especially under pressure. In exams, students must hold information in the mind, sequence ideas, and explain processes all at once. If working memory is overloaded, performance drops even when knowledge exists. Memory is context sensitive. This is why students often say, I knew it at home, but my mind went blank in the exam. I've had it many times in the piano room where students practice really hard at home, they've come to perform with me and they say, I can't remember, but I did it at home. The knowledge hasn't disappeared, but the cues needed to retrieve are missing under those exam conditions. Encoding specificity principle. The encoding specificity principle explains this clearly in terms of information as it's retrieved most successfully when the learning context matches the recall context. If revision doesn't resemble exam conditions, recall becomes unreliable when it matters the most. Why recognition feels like knowing. Why recognition feels like knowing. Recognition feels convincing because it's fluent and effortless. Reading notes, highlighting or watching videos all create a sense of ease, but ease is not the same as learning. True learning often feels harder, slower, and less comfortable. The illusion of competence. This leads to the illusion of competence. Students believe they understand content because it feels unfamiliar, or it feels familiar. Unfortunately, this confidence collapses the moment they're asked to explain sequence or apply that knowledge independently. Stress and working memory. Exam stress reduces working memory capacity even further. Research shows that anxiety consumes cognitive resources, leaving less capacity for reasoning and explanation. This directly affects students' ability to construct full, coherent biology or whatever it is they're looking to answer. Why knowledge collapses in exam conditions. When facts are stored without strong relational links, without understanding how ideas connect, they're fragile. Under pressure, cues are lost, explanations are fragmented, and answers become vague or incomplete. Principle number 1. Train recall without prompts. The first principle is to train recall without prompts. This means using blank page recall, explaining aloud without any notes, and producing answers without checking them. The struggle here is productive, and it's how exam-ready memory is built. So when you get that textbook, and at the end of the textbook section, you get those questions, rather than skimming over them and going on to the next chapter, make sure that you answer those questions. Principle number 2, vary context deliberately. Revision should occur in varied contexts, different locations, different times of day, and formats to help memory become flexible rather than context dependent. This improves transfer to unfamiliar exam conditions. Principle number 3, build explanation chains. Biology isn't about isolated facts. Strong answers linked structure to function to consequence. Using the because word acts as a command word and signals to the examiner that that's what you're doing, you're explaining. The reasoning strengthens relational memory and makes explanations more robust under pressure. Principle number 4, simulate retrieval pressure. Students should practice under mild pressure. Short, timed explanations, limited preparation time, and exam-style prompts. This reduces the shock of real exam conditions and protects working memory. Principle number 5, feedback that diagnoses recall and failure. Recall must diagnose why recall failed, not just because the mark was lost. Effective feedback identifies missing links, sequencing errors, or weak explanations. So what this means for revision. Effective revision is not about time spent, it's about how that time is used. Students need to practice producing knowledge, not just reviewing it. So key references and why knowledge doesn't transfer. Decades of research shows that knowledge doesn't automatically transfer from revision to performance. Transfer must be deliberately trained through retrieval, explanation, and pressure. So the role of feedback. Practice without feedback reinforces errors. Improvement requires understanding why marks were lost and how to fix that gap. Feedback turns effort into progress, and from revision to performance. To improve performance, students must practice producing answers under timed, pressured conditions, with explicit attention to explanation quality. What this actually means in terms of improving outcomes, well, what improves outcomes is not more revision, but better revision, focused on recall, explanation, and transfer. Next steps. The next steps is to redesign revision so it improves the demand of the exam. When revision trains recalls under pressure, confidence becomes reliable and performance follows. So if you want to get in touch to discuss this further, please feel free to message me and we can chat about it.